In this lecture, we're going to learn how to create links to navigate around. We don't want the user to navigate around by manually typing in the URL in the address bar. We will provide links to the pages we want them to have access to. We'll start by making the links in the menu on the header functional. We'll be working in the header component file. Inside the template, we have an unordered list of links. We want to stop the default behavior for when a link is clicked. We don't want the browser to make a request causing the browser to refresh. Instead, we want to check if the link matches any of the paths we set in the router. If there's a match, we want to redirect the user without having the browser reload the assets. The router library provides a component that will handle the heavy lifting for us. We're going to start by creating a link to the home page. Up above, there's an anchor tag with a comment that says app name. Instead of using an anchor tag, we're going to replace this with a component called router link. This component is a global component registered by the View Router plugin. The router link component will create an anchor tag. The main difference is that the anchor tag will be listening for click events. If a click is detected, the default behavior will be overridden. The router will handle the redirect rather than the browser. We can leave the class attribute alone. It'll get applied to the anchor element created by the component. We're going to modify the href attribute. Then we'll change the name to to. This is a property where we can set the path to redirect to. We have the option of adding in a / before the path. If we do add a /, the router will append the path to the domain. Otherwise, it'll append the path to the current path. For example, let's say I set this to about. If the current URL is example.com, then the user will be redirected to example.com/about. However, if the current URL was example.com/test/test, then they would be redirected to example.com/test/about. This is fine if that's what you're aiming for. However, if the URL you meant to redirect them to was example.com/about, then you should add the / before the path. Let's test if this is true. Even though this is the home link, we'll be setting the path to about for example purposes. Open the app in your browser. Before we click on the link, let's inspect it in the developer tools. The router link component will be placed with the anchor element. The href attribute is set to the path we passed in. You may see a / prepended to it. This is fine because the router library needs the full path relative to the URL. The class attribute has the classes we added to the component. Additional classes are being added, which we can use to stylize the link. We'll be doing that soon, but for now, we're going to ignore them. The router library doesn't load CSS code into our app. We don't have to worry about them. Lastly, the text inside the anchor tags is the same text placed inside the component. In a way, the router link component is almost like the anchor element. The main difference is that it'll attach some event listeners to the anchor element. This is for handling the redirect. Let's give things a test by clicking on the link. After clicking on it, almost instantly, the main content switches from the home component to the about component. The browser didn't have to reload the contents. Vue takes care of making the changes. We can verify this by switching to the Vue developer tools. Under the router history section, we'll find the logs for the path changes. This log proves that the components were swapped with one another. This works as expected, but there is an issue with this implementation. Inside the URL bar, I'm going to change the path to test/test. If the path does not match any of the records, the router will not render anything at all. This is not what we want. We can override this behavior by creating a 404 page, but we'll get to that in another lecture. For now, I'm going to click on the link again. This time the router will navigate to test/about. This behavior isn't what we want. We want to redirect the user to the /about path. If you do not add a /, the path will get appended to the current path. it won't redirect based on the path relative to the base domain. We can resolve this by always adding a forward slash to the path. Back in the editor, update the to property with the forward slash character before the path. Let's test this again. Starting from a nested path, I'll click on the link again. The browser will take us to the /about path. By adding the forward slash character, we are assured that the path will get appended to the domain rather than the current path. I wanted to highlight this as you may forget to add the forward slash character from time to time. I know I have. In the next lecture, we'll work on creating links for the other pages in our app.